No more men and women's sports. Do you think there'll be a massive challenge when it comes to trying to get that done? Go ahead, Phil.
I could tell you there is a feeling that I have, and people that I've spoke to, I'd say the majority of folks will not have an issue with this. Obviously, there's always special interest groups, regardless of what president, whether it was Biden or Trump, will challenge it. It does appear that everybody has an opinion on it. So, yes, I do think it will be challenged.
The other issue with ICE and what they're doing with immigration and deporting people, what's your thoughts on that legally?
Well, I think our new U.S. Attorney for the United States made it very clear. Pittsburgh's going to be in some real trouble. Mayor Gainey has made public statements that he is not going to cooperate with the government for helping and assisting ICE illegal aliens. And she announced tonight that federal funding will stop as of this moment for cities that are deciding to call themselves sanctuary cities. And see, Rob, what people don't understand, I've been tagged a lot of times by friends or foe. Phil's a criminal defense lawyer, personal injury lawyer. What a lot of folks don't realize is I actually was special counsel to the county controller, so I understand budgets quite well. And I worked with 100 auditors, and I have a finance degree in economics. And I can tell you, the county nor the city could survive without federal funding. People will complain about their county tax when really it's their school district tax. They don't know because they pay a mortgage company. It's these school districts that are also out of control. But I'm not going to get into that right now. But with regard to federal funding, it's amazing. I mean, your real estate tax you pay for your county or your city tax if you live in the city, and the county tax, it hardly pays for anything. I know at one time the debt service was so bad, you were looking at 60 cents on the dollar for debt service. And that means for every dollar of income, 60 cents is going out to money that's already been spent or is on loan. So the federal funding is really important. And if that doesn't pressure you, I've always said, whether, you appreciate the Supreme Court or not, there was a great justice, and she had a husband, and he was one of the greatest tax lawyers of all time. And he said, if you want to change social policy, now listen to this, Rob, if you want to change social policy, you don't go out in the streets and protest. That's fine. It's your legal right to do it. But if you want true change, you change the tax code. Okay? And now think about that and the ramifications that come with that. Mm-hmm. It was brilliant. And I could tell you, I think the federal funding is going to be very, very difficult to survive without it.
All right. Now, let's talk about why you're here. Pam Bondi, your thoughts about her, the new AG.
My thoughts are she is phenomenal. I mean, I did not know as much about her as the administration, but when you start to read about her and being someone who was the Florida state's attorney general, a state unlike California that is drowning in debt and crime is rampant. Florida is nothing but flourishing. It's like Texas. And so she was the great state of Florida, businesses thriving. She was not only capable of handling immigration issues there, but she also aligns perfectly with what Donald Trump had run on, and he overwhelmingly got voted into office for by the popular vote as well as the Electoral College. So I think she's going to be a great U.S. attorney, and I think that she is a woman of action. I don't think you're just going to get sound bites out of her, even though she's a very attractive woman. It's not just going to be sound bites. She is somebody who's rolled up her sleeves, and she can try a case, and she can also administer the thousands of people working for and under her.
So what are the responsibilities, Phil, of the Attorney General of the United States?
Well, it's we don't have enough time for your show, but a lot of people just, when they hear U.S. attorney, they think, in the realm of the criminal world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we just had Senator Mendez. He was convicted. He was tried by the U.S. attorney. You had President Trump, who they attempted to bring charges against. But really, there's a phenomenally large civil division, which is bigger than the criminal division. So whether it's with EPA issues, consumer protection issues, going back to the criminal end, immigration issues, which delve into both criminal and civil, SEC issues, IRS issues. The list goes on and on and on. Every interstate commerce. I mean, it is just a massive, massive job, and that's why, quite frankly, it's probably one of the top 5 most powerful positions in the country.
I'm going to talk after this segment about Senator Fetterman getting some blowback as far as, supporting her and supporting the Gaza Strip, temporary removal idea of the president and him supporting Israel and all this other stuff. And I'm saying, look, I commend him. I had some questions, too, during his run for the Senate. But we go back to his days of being mayor in Braddock, and I think he's trying to do what we need to have more in this country. And you and I talk about it all the time, bipartisan, moderate politicians coming together to achieve a common goal. My question is, I think Mr. Trump, our president, adding a lot of youth, a fresh look when it comes to cabinet appointments, because I think he wants to make it put his best foot forward to do it a little differently and hopefully get better results. Does that make any sense to you at all?
I think you're spot on. I think if you look at his last administration versus this administration, not only with the quality picks, President Trump made a great statement. He said, just because you're a D or just because you're an R does not mean you're going to be on my side if you're an R. He goes, now I know who the good guys are and I know the guys that are not. And so when we talk about someone like John Fetterman, who you and I have known for over 20 years,
yep.
Here's a guy that is attempting to do what Ronald Reagan did with Tip O'Neill and other senators. He's trying to bring that unity. Isn't that what we want? Do we want to continue to have a country controlled by 5% on each side, special interest groups? And I think the American people really spoke in this election that's saying, I did vote Republican. I might be a Democrat, but I'm tired of all this nonsense. I wanted to come back to the center. We are a moderate country, 95% of it, but yet 2.5% on each side with these special interest groups and the money are attempting to control. And when you talk about some of the issues you talked about before, it's not to say they're de minimis in nature, but when you really talk about some of those issues, it's 0.001% of the population. And yes, everybody should be created equally. And I've heard this my whole life. No one is above the law, Phil. No one's above the law. That's right. And guess what, Rob? And no one's under and beneath the law.
Right.
No one's beneath the law, Rob. So, there's two sides to tango. Here you have our senator, and I got to tell you, McCormick, an unbelievable. I think he's going to be our next John Hines. No disrespect to John Fetterman, but I think McCormick's going to be our next John Hines, and he's going to work with both sides and do amazing things. But Senator Fetterman's making a great effort, and hopefully, and here's the thing. You have to be fearless if you're going to run for office or get appointed to office, Rob, and here's why. Because I know for a fact they've told U.S. senators, we're going to primary you. If you don't do what we want, we're going to primary you. And a lot of times you had moderate Democrat senators that tout. And I think, you could say what you want about Senator Fetterman, good, bad, or otherwise, but he does not have fear, and he does what he thinks is right, and I respect that.
Last question. I got less than a minute, but I got to get your thoughts. I see him delegating now more than ever, and I think he has some of the brightest legal minds kind of advising him, and I think Pam Bondi will do the exact same thing. I like the fact that he's delegating some things that he knows that may not be his strong point. I think it's going to really make a whole lot better 4 years than he had the very first 4 years.
Whether it's the CEO of a company, a managing partner of a law firm, or a coach of a football team, if you can spot talent and let that talent so long as you're watching them, you trust them, but you verify and let them do what you hired them to do, they will flourish. It's all about letting a little bit of control go, but ultimately it will get you to the goal that you're focused on.
Good stuff, Attorney Phil DiLucente. Have a great rest of your week. Thank you, sir.